really eat dinner last night either. It was so weird. I think we're live now.
Yeah, I just got the notification. The one where we are sad.
I know. I was like,
We are sad.
I mean, I'm sad, but I'm optimistic, hopeful.
Oh my god, that tweet from Mac Wilson made me like want to cry. He's
Like,
just
all of
I
his
can't with all of
tweets.
them. Everyone's tweets. DPJ I just read before coming
God.
down here.
And Ronnie Harrison's.
oh,
Yes.
And the fact that Mac changed his profile picture to Kevin
I know.
Stefanski.
he must have the biggest because you know all the bros have crushes on
Oh
Kevin
my
Stefanski.
God.
Or
I
he's just like trying to suck up, you know, like
I
to
don't
hold his
know.
roster spot.
I just
Sorry, Mac, we
love
love
it so
you.
much.
Oh, yeah. He's
I saw
like,
that today and I melted. I was like, oh, Mac, how could anyone hate you?
We're asking people to drop their Twitter crushes, and then Mac is just like, but Kevin Stefanski doesn't have Twitter.
You know, I don't know if this was like a mom, like me just being a mom and being super emotional. I know, Brittany, you're emotional too, but
Oh, yeah.
when they were showing before the game, when they were showing the Browns like in the locker room, they had a camera on them forever. And it was just, they were just filming the Browns before they ran out of the tunnel. And, you know, it was like Baker. I think it was, I don't know if it was Joel or if it was JC Treader next to him, but like you could see all the guys trying to get like fired up. I literally was like fighting back tears. I just was like so proud of them, and I was just so emotional, just waiting for them to run. I could barely hold it together. Like I can't even believe this is happening.
My dad texted me and said that he wished the game was on Nickelodeon because he hates Tony Romo.
You know,
Tony Romo was cracking me up yesterday. Well, he always does, but like yesterday, it was annoying that he was like, you know, basically like sucking them off the Chiefs. But like he's funny when he does the voice impressions and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
that was
Yeah,
funny when he did that.
See, I never get to hear that though because I only have
Oh my
because
God.
I'm on the radio, so I've only got the radio broadcast. So like we
When
can't.
Pat Mahomes went out, I legitimately thought Tony Romo might cry.
Yes.
I thought he was that upset
Yes.
about Pat Mahomes.
My heart like sunk into my stomach. Like if I didn't have an affiliation, like if I didn't have a team with a rooting interest and I was just like, I want to watch football, I would choose the Kansas City Chiefs just because I love Pat Mahomes that much. Like I love watching him play. I love everything about him. So like a game like yesterday was hard for two reasons, because I don't like having to root against him, and then seeing him go down and seeing him because like, I don't know, I had flashbacks of like when I was in a car accident and had that exact same thing happen to me where I like couldn't walk straight. I couldn't see straight. Like it's scary.
Yeah, I felt terrible when that happened.
Yeah. Well, I hope he's back this week.
Oh, we're live.
He's been live.
Oh.
Yeah, we can actually no, you're fine. We can get started if you guys are ready. We'll get into the show. People are streaming in. I guess yeah, it's on my Twitter page if you guys want to retweet and get it out there even more.
Oh yeah, I got in live so I could like try and see the comments. It's hard to follow along with the comments though.
All right, you guys ready?
We are ready.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode number 10 of That's What B Said, brought to you by Fansided. I'm your host, Bree, at Breezy Clee, and I'm joined by, I got my two ladies here. We are live, Miss Brittany Mollis at Bird's Eye View. Hi, Britt.
Hello. We had to go live tonight so everyone could see my fresh roots.
It looks great.
Thank you.
And Meredith's hair looks great as well. Hi, Meredith.
Look at her. She looks like a model.
It's a mess. It's
not a mess.
This is what happens when you just run water through it and hope that it turns out okay.
Well, it works for curly-haired girls, especially.
Appreciate you guys.
Oh, well, you all know that we name our episodes based off of Friends, the one. It always starts with the one. And tonight we couldn't come up with anything outside of the one where we are sad. And we are sad. We're sad. We're sad the season is over. As we all know, the Browns fell to Kansas City 22-7 on Sunday, ending our playoff dreams, our Super Bowl hopes, squashed in the divisional round of the playoffs. There's a lot to digest from the game yesterday, a ton of storylines that we will get into. But before we do, we just want to remind everyone there is so much to be positive about. And I wrote this little monologue today because I was really down on myself And, in the typical that's what B said fashion, we don't like to grovel. We like to be positive. We've been positive all year. This is not going to be an episode where we are licking our wounds. So I'm just going to get into something really quickly before we go into the game. This team blew away everyone's expectations. Think about what the Browns were able to accomplish in a year after coming off of a 6-10 season. A rookie head coach, a new GM, a worldwide pandemic, an abnormal offseason, no real training camp, season-ending injuries, adversity throughout the season. All of that turned into a 12-6 season, a playoff appearance, a playoff win. We can finally move on from the drive and the fumble, that long list of failed quarterbacks, the losing seasons, and the winless season. It's over. This team has exorcised all of the bad demons that have held onto this franchise for the last 40 years, and they did it in 1 year. The culture has turned around. There are expectations moving forward. Winning is what we have to look forward to. The Cleveland Browns are back, baby. Damn,
Baby.
it feels good. I had to say
Bree,
that.
that was beautiful.
It was
I'm crying.
beautiful.
That
I'm
was
gonna start
beautiful.
crying.
Do you have tears?
Me too. Well, we can get into the game, and then we're going to end the show in a positive manner as well. We tweeted earlier today what made you the happiest this year from the Browns. We got a ton of great feedback, and if you were feeling down on yourselves or feeling sad about the season being over, I encourage you to go read through that thread because it'll just make you smile.
Mhm.
So we know that yesterday did not go well for the Browns, almost the entire game, yet they were still in it to the end. It was a very weird game to watch, in my opinion. The team did not look like themselves. They didn't look like the teams that we had watched all season long. And I want to kick off with just some storylines out of the game, some hot topics that were being discussed. And I'm going to start with all of the self-inflicted wounds, which very uncharacteristic of this team. The Browns got behind in drives multiple times in this game. Specifically, so they were second and third and long in multiple situations.
Mhm.
Just to go over quickly the timeline of what I'm talking about. So in the first quarter, in the first drive of the game, Baker took a sack, which put him at 3rd and 21. That halted the drive, which ended up in the field goal. Second quarter, after Baker hit DPJ for that really big gain, they throw for another first down that went to Jarvis Landry that got called back for holding, putting them again at 1st and 20. And then Nick Chubb uncharacteristically dropped 2 screen passes in a row. That drive ended with a punt. Defense ended up holding the Chiefs to a field goal, which was huge. Going into the second quarter, or further along in the second quarter, DPJ got called back for an offensive pass interference call, putting the Browns at 2nd and 20. They got it back with a big play by Njoku, which eventually led into the Hollywood fumble. So I want to stop here for a minute. Hollywood, as we all know at this point, fumbled into the end zone when he was reaching for the touchdown, which resulted in a turnover and then a touchback to Kansas City right before the half. There was clear head-to-head contact that did not get called, and it was not reviewable. Did you guys even remember that this rule existed? I want to get your opinion on what was going through your mind. Brittany, I'll start with you.
As soon as it happened, this is a rule that I just historically hate. The touchback thing. I can't stand it. It doesn't make any sense to me that you would give the defense something for doing nothing. You're giving them everything for doing nothing, really. And to have it not end, because that wasn't the end of the game, but in a lot of ways it kind of felt like it.
Yeah.
Because it was just such a crushing blow at that point, because they were just getting there. It was still within, reach. They were playing very well against Kansas City, and the defense, which I know we're going to get into, got to give them a lot of props for holding that team to, was it 22 points? Was that what they had? Or no?
Yeah. Yep. You're right.
I mean, they couldn't have done much better than they did, really, given the talent and the limitations. Good on them. But in that moment when that happened, it was just it was a gut punch. Really, that's what it felt like to me. And I'm just that's going to be so hard to overcome. And kudos to Hollywood, because after that, like, he played his ass off. He was very reliable, very good. They didn't let that kill them, which, again, this is not the same old Browns. They rallied, they tried to get back in the game, but I do hope two things. Number one, the NFL revisits the touchback rule, because I think the whole thing is just crap. Number two, the helmet to helmet that is not reviewable. If you're watching if you're doing a replay, you got to make sure that he fumbled. Why can't you look at all of it and say, hey, you know what? We missed this helmet to helmet contact. Like, this is a problem. Let's make it right. But apparently that's just not a thing. So even when you're wrong about something, you can't admit it and fix it, which just seems very backwards to me. So those two things that I hope that they address going further.
Yeah, I agree. Meredith, what are your thoughts?
I don't want to hear the NFL come out and talk about player safety ever again after that,
right?
Frankly, because that was probably the most infuriating thing ever, because it was so blatant and so obvious. And when you look at the replays, there's a ref standing right there, saw it happen, didn't call it. That player for the Chiefs should have been ejected.
Yes.
That should have been first and goal at the 1, which is where the penalty occurred. Mm-hmm. So the fact that penalties aren't reviewable is absolutely ridiculous. And then when you have a dirty hit like that is very clearly targeting, and they're not going to call it, they're not going to review it, nobody's going to get any kind of sanctions for it. Like, it just absolutely infuriating, because that could have seriously injured Hollywood.
Oh yeah. And then Kansas City, their Twitter, their social media today had it play. Yes. Like, they're like, oh, Dirty Dan likes to make hits. Like, are you kidding me? You're just gonna show this over and over again? Like, it's fine.
I mean, I don't know who their social media person is, but that tweet should have never happened.
Oh, and it's still up. They had time to delete it as soon as they posted it, and it's still up 24 hours later, just broadcasting this very dirty play. And they're like, oh no, it's fine. Dirty Dan, oh, he's so cute.
Right. For me, it's the NFL's inconsistencies in these calls, and you see it game to game, week to week. I mean, the Saints and Bucks game, I believe they called a head-to-head hit that same night, and I would say that the Browns one was more egregious and wasn't called. So the NFL just cannot figure out how to be consistent when it comes to officiating. And for me, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out. I mean, the XFL last year, they had the little sky booth judge who was able to make calls to impact the game. And it wasn't in my mind something that was a huge interruption. It's just getting the calls right and not making these things possibly deciding factors one way or the other. I just don't understand why the NFL is so stubborn in not trying new things. Yeah. I don't get it. And it feels like every single year there's a huge non-call in a playoff game. Yeah. And the Browns happen to be on the bad end of it.
Was it New Orleans before the pass interference thing?
Yeah. Did they get screwed 2 years in the playoffs? Weren't they? It was back-to-back years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. It always feels
like joke today, and they're like, if the NFL fixes this, then somehow the Browns will get screwed on it next year too.
Right. Well, it's so true.
And we brought this up weeks ago. And I want to say it may have been in Baker's rookie year where he got hit with a helmet to helmet, and they ruled it not targeting because he was running.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know that we're obviously biased because we're Browns fans, but it does always feel like the Browns just don't get the benefit of the doubt. They're not on the positive end of officiating. They never have been. And I don't know if after this year that may change, but you have to think that if that were a situation where it was Patrick Mahomes diving and gets hit in the head, a flag would have been thrown immediately. And that's what bothers me. It's that certain players that will impact the game. If they get knocked out, then they'll do something. They'll step in to make make it right.
If that was Tom Brady that got a hit like that, they would have suspended the entire team and the coaching staff.
Yes.
On the spot, they would have just been like, all right, Buccaneers win. We're done. Don't touch Tom Brady.
To rub salt in the wound too today, the player didn't even get suspended.
No.
It's just like nothing was
annoying.
found. It's like, I'm sorry, we all saw it. The Kansas City Chiefs put it out on social media on repeat for everyone to
Right?
see.
I really hope that JC Treader says something about it because he is the president of the Players Association and he is, I think he has like a law, not a law degree, but he has some kind of public speaking centered degree. And he has written several like scathing letters to the NFL. And I really hope that he brings this up, not just because it was his teammate, but for the sake of the entire league. Because, like I said before, I don't want to hear anything about player safety when it's not, because it's not just the Browns that happens to. Like, it happened to the Browns yesterday, and it made it that much harder because that would have been a huge momentum shift in favor of the Browns. But this happens to other teams, and it happens to other players. And that's something that's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah. So this obviously got a lot of attention post game. I think even the halftime show, it was something that was discussed. I was actually happy that all of those hosts in the halftime talked about how it was a horrible non-call. It should be reviewable. That actually made me happy because I never feel like the Browns get that type of support when things go wrong. But needless to say, from that point on, Kansas City went down. They did get a field goal after that moment, which going into halftime, the score was 19-3. It felt backbreaking at that moment in time. It didn't feel like we had a shot to pull things off. But the Chiefs would only score 3 more points after that.
Which is crazy.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yes. This team averages 30 a game.
Yes.
Like averages 30 a game.
Yes. And I was shocked that we only had 3 points. Like I thought that the game at this point, there'd at least be like 20 points across each team. So 19-3 going into halftime. The Browns just didn't seem to be themselves on offense, but they came out in the third quarter. It seemed like Stefanski had made adjustments after that first stalled drive. After the Baker interception, they got a break because that turned into no points. And the Browns came out running. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt went for some big runs. And at that moment in time, I thought to myself, we figured it out. Like, we're going to run. We're going to dominate this half. Like, we're going to come back into this game. It just didn't happen. Obviously, the Browns went on to score a couple of touchdowns to get back in the game. But I have to say, I was actually more surprised at how our offense performed than how our defense performed. And I know that may be a bit of a hot take, but we've been saying all year on the show, our best defense is the Browns offense. And we all said coming into this game that we expected the Browns to have to score 40 points in order to beat this Chiefs team. We couldn't even score 20. So for me, that was the biggest disappointment is I felt like our offense just stalled and we couldn't get enough done on that side of the ball in order to win the game. And we'll get into the end of the game. We're going to get into that. But I just wanted to get your guys' take on just the offense overall. And if you felt like it was just weird.
It's not, especially like, in contrast to last week. Where like they had everything was working to their advantage.
Yes.
Everything from like the very beginning. So, and we've seen flashes of their offense look just amazing throughout the season. There are, specific halves. Really, they're like a first half team, which is why I was nervous yesterday because they were so bad in the first half. I was like, oh God, like historically they're a first half team. Like we're in trouble. This is not going to end well. But, yesterday was tough to watch because you saw potential there. There's always the potential for something explosive to happen with this offense. And so many things just seem to go wrong. Like Nick Chubb dropping the passes.
Yeah.
You wondered why Kareem Hunt wasn't more involved because you had this really hungry guy who really wanted to be in. He comes in, scores, and then he's just, not really there the rest of the game. And, again, the defense did their job except for, the final couple minutes. But, the one thing that I wasn't really counting for was that Kansas City would have the ball so much, like, especially in the first half. They're quick. You get used to Kansas City being up tempo and they're very fast and they score very fast. And it seemed like they sort of got the Browns game plan where they're like, okay, we're just going to keep it out of their offense. And it worked. It was effective.
Yep.
But it was disappointing just because you knew that this is a win or go home game. So you got to put it all out there. And, we're going to get into coaching next. So I don't want to get into that too much, but it had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, well, we'll jump into what you're talking about on defense, Brittany, which was the Chad Henne, I guess, almighty Chad Henne that could not be stopped. Who
I forgot he even
that I would be
existed.
saying that?
I forgot that man even existed until yesterday.
So did I. That's why, like, I saw him come out. I was like, that's Chad Henne, like the Chad Henne. He's round. No idea. I had no idea.
We were talking before, Meredith, and because Chad Henne went to Michigan, my husband knew he still existed and he was in the league. And I told Brittany,
Ugh.
I literally thought that he like played 4 years ago at Michigan because I feel like Michigan quarterbacks, they're like the same year in and year out. So like there's probably been like 5 Chad Hennes on the team since when Chad Henne was there, but I never.
Is Michigan a Chad school? Is it a Chad school?
Oh, it's a Chad school.
It's like the same type of quarterback, just a different name. But anyway, so the defense, obviously not great. They had a huge task to handle this explosive Chiefs offense, Patrick Mahomes when he was in. However, Patrick Mahomes goes out, Chad Henne comes in. You have a chance to win the game. You really do. They get an interception, great interception, which, by the way, guys, I have to bring up because this is the weirdest thing. The last 3 weeks, right before a Browns turnover from the defense, I have tweeted out, we could really use a turnover here. And then the next play, it happens. Honest to God, I am 3 for 3. I clearly need to go play the lottery, but the football gods, they like to listen to my tweets when it comes to the Browns.
I want to see your Twitter like next season. It's just a constant stream of we can really use a turnover right now. Just the whole
until
time.
I hit.
Yes.
I think the Mega Millions is like 750 million right now. So go get yourself a ticket.
I better go get a ticket. Yeah, I should be able to predict those numbers if I can predict a turnover. But anyway, I should have tweeted out stop Chad Henne on 3rd and 14 because that did not happen. Chad Henne almost gets all 14 yards, his slow ass, which, I mean, our defense, what are you doing? He doesn't get it. It goes to 4th and inches. Again, you have another chance to stop them and get the ball back, to give it back into Baker Mayfield's hands. They go for it. They get it. I mean, just at that point, you just felt like that's how it was going to go, just based on all of the events that happened in the game. Meredith, what did you think about those 2 plays?
Well, firstly, I'm convinced that Andy Reid listens to our podcast because last week we laid out all the ways that the Browns can win and we had all of our points on a game plan for the Browns. And then the Chiefs did every single thing that we talked about in the podcast last week. So clearly Andy Reid listens to the podcast.
Duh. Why wouldn't he?
But I was so excited that Myles Garrett got his sack at such a pivotal point in the game.
Yep.
And then the defense lets this dude named Chad pull off a 13-yard run. Like, there were points in the game where Myles Garrett was chasing down tight ends and Travis Kelce. And I'm just like, why is Myles having to do that? Why isn't he still at the line of scrimmage trying to hold off?
That was,
like that was the part that was really uncomfortable for me to watch is looking at Myles having to play a position that he's not built for. I mean, he's fast. He did a really good job in chasing down some of those guys, but he shouldn't have had to do that. So I just, when they kept the offense on the field to go for it on 4th and whatever it was, 2 yards, 3 yards, I don't even remember. I've already blocked it out of my head. I just my heart sank into my stomach and I was like, I knew that was it because I had no faith in the defense at that point.
Yeah, so I want to get into the coaching aspect of the game because I think it does kind of lead into some of the points we're going to talk about. we are huge Kevin Stefanski fans. We're stans. We love him. He's our zaddy. He still is our zaddy.
Yes.
I think it would be remiss if we gave him a pass for this game because I didn't want to tweet this. I didn't want to put this out there. I just knew it was going to blow up and be spun around. But I think Kevin Stefanski was severely outcoached in this game.
Yes.
And it was unfortunately probably his worst coached game of the entire season. It just happened to be against the best team in the NFL.
Yeah.
And you're going against Andy Reid, who's an amazing coach. And quite frankly, Andy Reid, like their game plan against this Browns team, it was great. You have to give it up to him. They exploited all of our weaknesses on defense and they were able to identify and shut down our offense. Like their defensive game plan for a team that wasn't supposed to be that great on defense, they did all the right things. And the Browns, what they did just wasn't enough. So, Kevin, were you in a COVID fog? Like, that is a thing.
It is a thing. It is a thing. Yes, it is.
Like, was he not 100% there? Were things foggy? Was the play sheet blurry? I don't know. But I want to start here. The running game. This was a tool in the toolbox that we felt like could exploit Kansas City and give us the best chance to win. And that was the run game. The game that has been dominant all season. You have two great backs. Kareem Hunt did not get a carry in the entire first half. I believe the Browns only ran the ball 19 times in total. And it did feel like there was some questionable play calling, especially in the back half of the game.
Yeah.
Ladies.
Like you would expect them, we talked about this earlier, or, last week when we were doing the preview episode, but you didn't want to get behind too big, too early because you wanted to establish the run game, because without that, your offense sort of stalls. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. And it's not that they didn't even try. It wasn't like they were down, by like 3 touchdowns at any point. They were still within striking distance. But if you don't establish that run game early, you're kind of backing yourself into a corner. And you're saying, okay, we're just going to rely on this. But you have these 2 great running backs at your disposal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? Kareem Hunt wanted to be there. He wanted to produce in a way that I don't think we've even seen before. Like, he was hungry for this game.
And also Kareem he's the one with the hands. Like, he was the one when the Browns had no wide receivers, was lining up as a wide receiver. He is the one who's so good at catching those little short dinky dunky screen passes.
Yes.
And then when he has a lane, he can take off. And for whatever reason, Stefanski was putting Chubb in on those plays. It made no
sense. Like, again, like that's something, and he just kept doing it. Chubb was not catching it, and he just kept doing it. And it's like, you have a running back that can do this. Mm-hmm. Why are you using the one who's great? He's not as good as Kareem at doing this. And, Kareem's not as good. It doesn't matter. But in that situation, it made no sense. There were so many things that happened yesterday that just made you scratch your head. And it was very uncharacteristic of what we've seen from Kevin Stefanski this season. You're like, this is coach of the year. Smart people do smart things. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to go in. I'm sure he's got a great game plan. And it just seemed like I don't know. I don't know how to explain what happened yesterday with that offense. I don't know how to explain what his plan was. I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely head scratching. I don't think enough was talked about Jedrick Wills going down. Obviously the first offensive play in the game, and then Kendall Lamb coming in. And then obviously he goes down. Like, I do think that probably did impact the game plan quite a bit, just because this is something that they didn't anticipate, at least with Joel Bitonio being out against the Steelers. They were game planning and practicing all week long to get everyone else ready on the team. And then you lose someone like Jed, who has been your starting left tackle the entire season. That was a huge blow. And to your point, like the Kareem Hunt usage, to me, I didn't really get it. It almost felt like he was saving him for the third and fourth quarter, like he had in the past, where like Nick Chubb kind of gets a break and then Kareem comes in fresh. But I guess expected a little bit more of some freshness in the offense, some originality. It felt like we were running some of the same plays we did the week prior with those trying those screen passes to Chubb, and we even tried to run the same play to DPJ in the same game. I don't know, like it didn't feel like the typical Kevin game. And the Chiefs were ready for all of those plays, by the way. Like we were not fooling them. They were prepared. And that hurt.
Yeah.
They were prepared for that banana play too. At one point,
Oh, yeah.
Baker flipped it over to Jarvis, and Jarvis just got stuffed.
Yeah, they blew it up. They blew up a lot.
Oh my
They
God.
blew up a lot of plays.
I mean, up until that point, Stefanski was batting 1,000 on those little trick plays. And
Mhm.
I think Jarvis was like 4 for 4 on the season for 92 yards or something like that. Something ridiculous. But I was really proud of Jarvis for his performance as makeshift quarterback on those trick plays. But yeah, I mean, it was just like, I don't know. It almost felt like the Chiefs had been studying the Browns all season long.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it looked like because Kevin Stefanski hadn't tried one of those cutesy little trick plays since before the bye week, maybe. I don't know if I remember him. Maybe there was one instance after the bye week, but a lot of those plays they were running towards the beginning of the season, and they were running them against teams like the Washington football team, teams they knew that couldn't really defend those. So it was strange that he would have pulled that out of the bag. And it was obvious that the Chiefs just were completely unfazed by it. Like it legitimately felt like Andy Reid has been watching this Browns team all year long.
Yeah. A lot of people in the comments are saying David Njoku played really well. And I would agree, which is interesting because I don't think he practiced all week because of a hamstring. So I was surprised with how much usage David got. But he made some key plays and he's been a really good blocker recently. So I think that's a player that, requested a trade at the beginning of the season. I'm glad they hung on to him and it'll be interesting to see what they do with him go forward because one could argue, he may have played better down the stretch than Hooper. I know Hooper made obviously that really critical catch, but Hooper's had a lot of drops this season and he's making a lot of money for those drops.
I like Njoku better than Hooper.
Yeah,
I do. And first of all, number one, I'm mad at him actually. Because,
you're mad at who? Njoku or Hooper?
Yes, no, I'm mad at Njoku because every single week in our DraftKings, I always take Njoku like religiously because I'm like, this is it. This is going to be his breakout game. This is when they're going to realize he's great. And then yesterday, I did not take Njoku because I was like, oh, he has the hamstring. He's probably not going to be fresh. Like, he hasn't practiced. No. And then he goes out and has himself a game, which I was made me so happy because I love to see him do well. But like on a personal note, it killed me because I ended up in like 143rd or something. It was bad.
Oh, I didn't even look at
You guys, Brittany, you sound like a true veteran fantasy football player.
I know. This is why I never wanted to get into it. This is why I never wanted to do it.
How dare you, Bree? For your dollar fantasy football, you're ruining the community.
Ruining the community.
You're seeing it alive and well right now. It's happening. I've ruined Brittany Mollis.
How dare you? How dare you?
No, and the whole game too, because I was watching it at Danny's and like he knows that like I always take Njoku like every week. So every time he did something good, Danny's sitting at the bar and he'd look at me like this.
Gosh, savage, Danny.
I know. So rude.
It's okay. I took Cody Parkey almost every week religiously until he had those 2 games where he missed so many. And I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Hey, Cody Parkey was perfect in the playoffs, though.
He was our guy. Perfect Parkey. He's out of the doghouse now.
Playoff Parkey is better than regular season Parkey. Actually, that's not true in Chicago, but for the Browns, he worked.
Chicago was a fever dream for Cody Parkey. That was in a different timeline.
Oh, okay. Well, Brittany, anything else on Njoku, or was it just the fantasy situation?
I hope that they keep him. I hope that they don't try to trade him. I hope he doesn't want to trade. I hope that he's like friendly, happy here. And yeah, I do like I like him better than Hooper. It's nothing against Hooper. I think Hooper's fine. Baker really seems to love him and that's great. But like I think there's still a place for Njoku. And I hope that continues. I would be sad if he was not here next year.
Yeah. Quite frankly, when it comes down to this offense, I really hope they don't make a lot of changes because I think that this offense is great the way it is. You've got the weapons that you need. I hope OBJ comes back. And I'm not saying that because I think he's going to be traded. I'm saying I hope he comes back in the sense that I hope he bounces back from his injury and we get vintage OBJ for the Browns. Like that's what I'm hoping for. So, I mean, this offense is pretty much set in place. And Baker even said he's excited that he doesn't have to learn another playbook in the off season. So this team has a solid offense. They kind of understand, like they do understand this scheme now. They've got all off season to think about it, to work on it.
Mhm.
Hopefully we'll have full training camp this upcoming year so they can work together more. But I mean,
I
this
agree.
this offense is it. I fully expect the defense to get completely blown up in the offseason. I think Andrew Berry's going to napalm it, but yeah, I really hope there's not a lot of changes on this offense.
Yeah.
And I
don't
agree
think
with
I don't
Brittany.
think there will be either.
I want to see Njoku stay too.
I think they've got a really solid base. So the one thing I want to talk about with the offense and Kevin Stefanski that I tweeted about earlier today, one thing that we hadn't seen all season was the Browns taking their time snapping the ball. It felt like this year, or sorry, this game specifically, the play cock.
Brie, I had water in my mouth. It almost came out my nose.
Gosh darn it, Brie. You can edit that out. The play clock.
I'm not going to.
Of course we won't. The play clock was winding down literally the entire game. And that just seemed very uncharacteristic of this team. They always seemed to feel like they knew what play they were going to run. They had it in time. They didn't need to waste a timeout in order to get set or to get everybody on the line set. This game, this happened a couple of times. And when I tweeted about it, I just said, like, it just felt like something was off. And a lot of people were coming back and saying that it was by design, that Kevin Stefanski wanted the play clock to run down to give the Chiefs less time of possession, which I don't agree with. I don't feel like that is a great strategy because having the play clock wind down gives the defense an advantage. And I just have a hard time believing that, 4 seconds, with how many times we had the ball, you're taking away, I don't know, 5 minutes for the Chiefs having the ball. It's like when I go to the gas station and I look across the street at the other gas station, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're a penny cheaper. And I'm like, I should drive over there and go get gas over there. And I'm like, okay, in the grand scheme of things, where you're saving 20 cents, like, to me, it wasn't that much of an impact to game plan that into this game plan. That doesn't make sense to me. Maybe someone can explain that to me in the comments a little bit better, but I just don't think that that's something Kevin Stefanski would do. I don't think that's chess. I think that's just, I wish someone would have asked him about this in the post-game presser. But everybody had to ask about how he felt about Mac Wilson's tackling Patrick Mahomes. Like, that's what he was being asked about in the press conference.
We would have had very good questions for him.
Right.
Like, why did you do this, please? Explain.
Although with Kevin Stefanski, he doesn't give a lot up in those press conferences.
Yeah.
He would probably say something, well, I'm not going to speak to that specific play, Brittany, but
if he said my name, I would just die.
He would. If you heard, he says the name of every reporter
on the floor.
But that's exactly how it would go. He'd be like, well, that one is on me, Brittany, but I'm not going to speak to that specific play. I have to be better. You can tell I've cut up a lot of Kevin Stefanski.
I'm smiling just thinking about this. I just be like, Okay.
I have gone through hours upon hours of Kevin Stefanski press conferences in the past 4 months. So it's a good and a bad thing.
Did you guys notice this at all, or was it just me? Because I was having flashbacks to 2019 Freddie Kitchens. Like, to me, it just reminded me of a Freddie Kitchens offense where they didn't know what play to call. It was just mass scrambles to get to the line, to get set up, to get the playoff in time. Freddie Kitchens has ruined me. The 2019 season has ruined me in a sense, because even this year I panicked when there was empty sets and when there was no running back in the backfield, or when we would run empty on a 1st and goal, 2nd and goal. And I didn't have to be that way this year because Kevin Stefanski knew what the hell he was doing and what plays he was calling. But the whole play clock winding down, when I saw it hit 4, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm watching 2019 all over again. It just gave me flashbacks, really bad flashbacks.
I like to think that Stefanski had a rhyme or a reason to his madness. Whereas with Freddie Kitchens, like, hey, why don't I just run down this? Why not just run down this play cock? Dang, name it.
Freddie Kitchens for sure said the play cock.
He's like, whoop the hell, I'm gonna run down this play clock.
Oh man. All
One
right.
thing that I wanted to point out today, and it made me think of what would have been different last year. I saw Nick Chubb say the thing that he liked most about
Hmm.
Stefanski is he's just about the work. Like, it's very Nick Chubb-ish. He's
Yes.
just about the work. And I was like, I wonder if they would have posed that question to Nick Chubb last year about Freddie Kitchens, what his answer would have been. Like, what do you like about Freddie Kitchens? I don't know what Nick Chubb would have said to that. Like, what?
He's funny. I don't know.
He's got a good personality. I don't know.
He's a big jolly man in the locker room.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be me doing impressions of everybody for the rest of the podcast.
Okay, so getting back to Coach Kevin. So the other thing that was questionable was his challenging this game. He didn't throw the challenge flag on what looked like wasn't a catch, but he threw the challenge flag on the Tyreek Hill catch that happened like literally in front of the coaching staff.
Yeah, okay, so with that first one, I think that the Chiefs knew that wasn't a catch, and so they went no huddle and snapped the ball as quickly as they could. And I think that Kevin Stefanski it took him a minute to process, oh wait, that wasn't a catch, I should have challenged it. But at that point, they're already on the next play. So I think the next challenge flag was him overcompensating and just trying to get the red flag out as quickly as he could, because the Chiefs, they knew what was up and took away his opportunity in the first half with that non-catch.
Yep.
That broke my heart when he didn't challenge that one, and I was like, what is happening? That's when like everything sort of hit, and it's like, what's happening today? Yeah, like none of this makes any sense. This is so not like him to be making mistakes like this.
Yeah, agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. A lot of just so many uncharacteristic is just a good word for like everything that happened. I mean, it was like the Nick Chubb, the Kevin Stefanski, the Baker Mayfield interception was so bad, the Hollywood Higgins. I mean, just so many things just piled up, all the penalties that brought him back to 1st and 20, 2nd and 20, 3rd and 20. I mean, it was just a day of being off balance. I guess that's what really good teams do to you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
remember when we talked about
balance.
last week, Kansas City, and like they have a tendency to put themselves in bad situations, like with penalties. What happened with that? Like it was us yesterday.
They still did actually get quite a bit of penalties because they actually killed themselves a little bit in having to settle for field goals. And I actually made myself go back and watch the game today. It was not fun, but I did think about that, Brittany, when we had brought that up, because they did shoot themselves in the foot a little bit with some big penalties. So it wasn't just us. We just did too many against a good team.
Yeah,
that's the thing about the Chiefs. They can make those mistakes and make up for it.
Yeah.
Like other teams, you can't afford to do that.
No, we could not afford to do that.
Could not. So the final thing about Kevin Stefanski that has brought up a lot of discussion today was punting on 4th and 9. We never got the ball back after that. In hindsight, he probably assumed that the defense could stop Chad Henne. And prior to that, just a little fun fact, the Browns had converted all of their 4th down attempts, but he didn't go for it on 4th and 9. There was a lot of time left in the game at this point. So I think it's unfair to criticize him for punting the ball when you have Chad Henne on the other side of the field. But we all know what happened with Chad Henne. He turned into Superman.
Yeah, and everyone was, hopping on that band. We're like, oh, you need to go for it. You need to go for it. If it's Patrick Mahomes, you got to go for it. It's 4th and 9. This is your last shot. Because Patrick Mahomes is very good. He'll make you pay. So, if that was the situation, I'd be like, yeah, Kevin should have gone. And this one, I was like, you know what? You take I know the defense is not great. It has its holes. It has its problems. But you got to take your chances if you don't trust your defense to beat Chad Henne, we have problems.
You're going to lose.
I mean, yeah, clearly they have some real problems on that defense, and it's going to be a very interesting offseason and draft, and it'll be fun to see what Andrew Berry and everyone make of this. But I don't blame him. I think that it 9 times out of 10, Chad Henne is probably stopped. You never planned for him to convert or get 14 yards or whatever it was on the third down. Like that's just something that you don't think, oh, this is possible. But yesterday it was possible. Andy Reid, he did a hell of a job. Good on him. But yeah, I think that punting was the right choice there.
Yeah. I think the other thing with that whole situation is like think about that drive that led to the 4th and 9. We couldn't get anything going.
No.
I mean, it like I also the other thing all game we couldn't get things going. Like how many plays like did he have left to call? Because we found ourselves in 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, 2nd and 20, 3rd and 20, all game long. We had to pull out everything to be able to convert a first down. It was so hard for the Browns all day yesterday to even get a first down.
Yeah.
I can't crush him for punting it there, thinking that there was a chance to get the ball back and put themselves in a better spot than what they were in.
Yeah, because again, you have 3rd and 14 on Chad Henne. You're like, all right, we're gonna get the ball back.
Yeah.
And yesterday just was not their day. Too many things went wrong yesterday. They piled up, and now we're done.
Well, okay. Kevin spoke to the media today. It's really hard to stay mad at him, I will say. Yes. He had a few snippets that I just wanted to mention that gave me hope. He said that he had talked to OBJ via text this morning and they can't wait to have him back. Wound. He also talked to Baker Mayfield and said that Baker is excited to not have to learn another playbook this offseason. Kevin also mentioned that he's looking forward to building on what they did this year. So again, I think this is a huge positive as we go into next year.
Yes, I love it. This is all good stuff. And you know what? This is stuff that cheers me up.
Yes, exactly.
Because I've spent most of yesterday sad and then most of today sad, but then I see it's just getting me hopeful for next season. I don't know how we're going to kill time between now and then, but we'll find ways. I'm not watching baseball, so don't even suggest it.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, I thought this was really nice. So to close out his press conference today, he thanks the media for all that they've done this season, acknowledging how difficult it has been to also do their jobs, which this is a guy that just continues to lead in so many ways. And once again, you look at all the players who have spoken in press conferences this year, and they have just modeled after their head coach, which again, this is who you want to have leading these guys into the future.
Yes.
Okay, let's get to the positive and the fun part of the show.
Yes,
so
let's do it.
Guys, we've had a really great Browns season. It has been so much fun to do this podcast during a winning football season. Week in and week out, there have been so many things to talk about, so many fun things to talk about. And I wanted to find out from all of our listeners and our followers, what was their favorite moment of the season? Because we had a lot of them this year. We had more good times than bad times.
We did.
And so I wanted to just go through that thread. You guys can jump in on the live chat today and share your thoughts as well. And we will go through and read the most. So I'll kick it off here, you guys, with mine. And then Meredith and Brittany, I'll have you guys share yours with me. I know it's going to be really hard to pick like one because there's so many. And then we could go through and read from, I typed in a couple in here in the group chat or in our rundown. And then we can read some of the live ones and I'll go through the thread.
Yes.
So for me, there were so many wonderful, wonderful moments this year. But the one that I have to mention, a bit of a sleeper, but Callie Brownson on this staff, the chief of staff for the Cleveland Browns. It's been incredible to kind of follow along on her journey and what she's meant to this team. And the fact that there is a woman leading up part of this organization has been one of the highs for me this entire season, on top of all of the play that we got to witness as well.
Yeah. And she set a few records this year. I think in the game against Washington, that was the first game in NFL history that had a woman on both sidelines and officiating. And I believe Callie is also the highest level coach in a playoffs for a woman, because I believe I think against the Steelers, she was acting tight ends coach.
Yes.
So that's the highest coaching position a woman has ever held in the playoffs. So she's just, man, like glass ceilings don't even exist to this woman. She's just like on all of them.
She is killing it. We are big fans.
Big
Mhm.
fans.
We're gonna try to get on the podcast one day.
Yeah,
That is a goal. That is a goal.
We'll be working on that.
I'd say my favorite this season, it's got to be the first half of the Tennessee game.
Ooh, love.
Because I've never felt better about watching the Cleveland Browns ever in the history of my life than watching them. Things were going so well that it just made me laugh hysterically. Like I could not stop because I was like, this can't be real. Like this is our team doing this? Like we're making everything look so easy. So I think that was probably my favorite moment of this season, was just watching them thrive against Tennessee, when a lot of people are like, well, this is their first real test, blah, blah, blah. And they just shined. And, again, everyone was worried about after, they're going to catch up, they're going to blow this game. I was never worried about it. I was like, no, this team's thriving. We're good. So that was my favorite moment. This is not a popular answer, but the game that I most enjoyed other than that, well, the Steelers game, but besides that one, was the game that they lost against Baltimore, because they showed this spirit and this fight that we were not used to see. They never gave up in that game. They didn't win, but it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like we watched something magical that day. So, those 3 games, those are my favorite things this season, I think.
Meredith, what about you?
I have a lot of favorite moments. I loved every time Jarvis threw the ball. Like I loved those trick
Which he
plays.
did a lot.
Yeah, I loved those trick plays. I thought they were awesome. I thought that it was creative and very indicative of the type of play calling that Stefanski was capable of early on in the season. But I'm going to say the Pittsburgh game in the wild card. And there's a very specific reason for that. A lot of reasons. First off, I have never seen my boss get super passionate about a Browns game. And in that first quarter, he was going nuts. Like he's very level-headed and very cool. Like he is a sports fan, but I saw him as a sports fan in that moment, which was a really rare moment for me. So it was so exciting to see like my super level-headed boss just get so emotional about that. And he's not even a Browns fan. He's from New York. He's a Giants fan. Aww. So that was really awesome. And I loved that also because putting up 28 points on the Steelers in a playoff game in one quarter was incredible. But the other reason why that game had so much meaning to me personally, and you guys are going to laugh, but it goes back to hockey. The Pittsburgh Penguins were always the Achilles heel for the Capitals. Every year the Caps would make the playoffs, and it didn't matter what round they met the Penguins in, the Penguins would knock them out every single time. And then the year the Caps won the Stanley Cup, they beat the Penguins in the second round. And John Walton, who's the radio play-by-play voice for them, screamed, "The demons have been exorcised." And the Caps went on to win the Stanley Cup that year. And I felt that same way about the Browns in Pittsburgh. They were in Pittsburgh against Big Ben in a playoff game. Yep. Demons completely exorcised. I had the very same feeling in that game that I did when the Caps beat the Penguins in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2018. Like it was an emotional moment for me. Like I hate Pittsburgh sports teams. I have since I was a little girl. Like they're hated in DC and they're hated in Cleveland. So that whole moment, that game, just everything about that game was so special to me for personal reasons. And then I sent you guys the screenshots of my dad's texts afterwards. And I just, like, I could, like, my little emotional heart could not handle just my dad, who had been saying same old Browns so many times, said they are not the same old Browns.
Yeah. I know. Well, so I want to read a couple of listeners because there were so many moments and every single moment that someone mentioned was like, yeah, that was a great moment. and the Pittsburgh game, winning at Pittsburgh in a playoff game, the way that we did was one of the most memorable moments for people, rightfully so. Watching Big Ben cry, the whole, I mean, just all of the story, like ending Big Ben's season, for how much like we had to just be bullied by him year in and year out in our own stadium, in his stadium. Him having more wins than any quarterback on our team since Baker Mayfield. I mean, just so many things that ended that game for a lot of people, made them very, very happy. The other thing that came up a lot that really made me think, like, yeah, this is such a good way to think about it. This is from Cody Ziegler. He said the Donovan's Peoples-Jones touchdown catch win over the Bengals was when it started to feel like we were never out of any game, even when things didn't go our way. And then someone responded and agreed and said the old Browns died that day. And I thought that was just so.
I love that.
Yes, it's just so true. Like I'm like crying right now.
Bree, we're too emotional.
God, you guys like were making me like happy and sad, like reading all of these. Okay, so I'll read a few more. I'll read Pete Smith, and then I'll turn it over to you guys to read a couple more, and then I'm going to try to pull some things up because I was just getting bombarded with responses today. Pete Smith,
it's a good thing. Like,
yeah, it's great,
a very good thing. Like that, so many people had so many moments throughout the season that they could pinpoint and say, "I remember that moment for a good reason."
Yeah, that's what I want to take away from this season, not 3rd and 14, Chad Henne. I want to remember all of these. Chad. So Pete Smith responded and said, this made me laugh out loud, his first line, when Lamar shit himself. And then he said, Cal Zombie Baker ending the Steelers' empire that touched on 5 different decades, the exact moment with the Mayfield scramble for 6 yards to get a first down after a drop. He wouldn't allow them to lose. And I totally, like Baker Mayfield, we got to see Baker Mayfield ball out this year for this team. Yeah. I mean, that's our mother freaking quarterback, you guys.
This is the Baker that they drafted. Like this is what they had pictured when they took him first overall.
Yep.
Yes. That's been a beautiful thing to watch. So do I get to read some from this thread?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So first one I see here is Slim Dog, friend of the show. He said their total progression in seeing their confidence build. And, speaking of Baker, like that is the number one thing going into this is he just needed to get his confidence back. We needed to see that quarterback that they drafted, this kind of loudmouth, chip on his shoulder guy. We needed to get him back. And this year we did, and could not be more proud of him. So that's a good one. Dana, she says, there are so many, and this is a good one, but one that stands out to me is the Dallas game. That was the first time where we were all like, wow, we might actually be good. I know Dallas turned out to be, not great, but our offense exploded that day. Remember how excited we were?
Oh my gosh, that was the Browns coming out game for me.
Yes, like their offense just looked otherworldly that game. Other than the Tennessee game, the first half of the Tennessee game, that's when the Browns looked their best, was the first half of that game.
I mean, so OBJ was so special in that game too. Remember how good he was?
Yes, I miss him. Can't wait to have him back. Let's see. First quarter of Pittsburgh. Yes. Actually, like the first 5 minutes of the game was
someone commented and said the snap over Ben's head. And I was like, yes.
That's it.
The first 5 seconds of that game.
Yes. Someone said the first win against the Bengals.
I'm going to read. Can I read John? Because I think he's in our chat as well tonight. I'm going to butcher your last name, John, but I'm going to guess. John. Oh, boy. John Tamanek? Sounds right. John says they bounced back after every loss, never lost 2 in a row, regrouped and got back on the winning track every time. If that isn't a sign of growth, I don't know what is. Gosh, Browns fans are so damn smart.
They're so romantic about it too.
Yes.
That's what I love about it so much. So we're so romantic about this team.
I want to read this one so badly.
Go ahead, Mare.
From
Bradley. I'm going to read them all.
From Bradley, Chubb's no-look stiff arm against Philly.
Yes.
Do you guys remember how hype we were after them? I've tweeted that GIF several times since that day. That was just such a hype move. And that was it was so Nick Chubb. It was perfect because then he was just kept acting Like it was like he just stiff arms guys every single day, like at the gas station.
Yes.
Stiff arm. Like that just it was so Nick Chubb. It was so perfect. I love that moment too.
Yeah.
That's
Our
good
good
one.
friend Mike Brown's UK. He's in the chat here too. The Nick Chubb run when he turned down a touchdown to step out at the 1 to ensure our victory against Houston.
Yes, that was a moment.
Mod football.
It was a confusing moment for some people, but then like once we realized what he was doing, we're like, oh, he's not being he's being a team player.
Yes, confusing, but then happy.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pull up the thread. I'll read
Oh, someone said the Lamb touchdown pass against the Titans.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
That
Oh
was a
yeah, how
great
can we
one.
forget?
There was just so
Sack guy
many this year.
touchdown.
Yes, there were so many this year that like these beautiful moments that just get lost in the shuffle. And you're like, then you think back. Honestly, I just want to spend like a week rewatching every single game.
Yeah.
Just, like live it again and see all these moments that I've forgotten because I completely forgot about that until right now. And that was so great. That was so exciting.
I mean, I remember last week in the pod, I said it didn't really matter what happened against the Chiefs because the Browns had a successful season. They had a winning season. They made it to the playoffs. They won a playoff game against their division foe. You know, they've been doing nothing but getting better every single week. Just, yes, the loss hurt. And like, I'm still sad about it. I felt like I went through a breakup today, honestly, but it was just everything that happened in this season. There was just so much, the good outweighed the bad so much that at this point, I can't even really remember a lot of bad moments. Like the first week against Baltimore was really rough. The first loss against the Steelers was rough, but I mean, just overall, it was a successful season. Whatever demons this team has had, whatever, you know, generational trauma from the past has been cured this season.
Yes.
Yeah, I like this one from Patrick kind of going off of that. He talked about he had hoped for 8-8 or 9-7, which we didn't even get into that, you guys. Like in a year where the expectations for the Browns, for most fans and even media for that part, was to just go 500, and they won 12 games, went to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and hung around with the Super Bowl, defending Super Bowl champs. I mean, that's pretty incredible. So he says, I guess my favorite part was that feeling in my stomach watching meaningful football games, excitement. We have not felt that way in a long time.
It's January 18th and the Browns season just ended. Like, when was the last time the Browns were playing on a meaningful game on January 17th?
Normally we're hiring coaches at this time.
Exactly.
This is our like coach breakdown podcast time.
You're right.
The Browns Super Bowl, which is hiring new coaches.
Yeah, we've had like there would have been 5 mock drafts by now already done.
Yeah.
Oh man. Any other good ones you guys want to call? I mean, there's just so many.
Yeah, it seems a lot of people when they talk about their favorite moments this year, a lot of them are centered around Cincinnati, that Cincinnati game. Now, granted, you know, OBJ went down, but a lot of people are saying that's when it felt like there was a shift. And after that game, they were playing with a real genuine purpose in a sense of we have something to prove now. That seems to be a common theme here. And I would agree with that. That was, again, it hurt to lose OBJ. He'll be back next year. It'll be great. But I think at that point, Baker was like, okay, I have to do this now. Like, no excuses. I have to go out there and I have to win now.
Yeah.
And look.
I wrote down a few others that we didn't touch on. Someone else mentioned this too, but just the next man up mentality. So like this team was prepared and ready to go when their number was called. I think we saw it from DPJ, his emergence. He had meaningful, impactful plays. The offensive line dominance and Bill Callahan, like just the brilliance of that group and how quickly they were able to turn something that was such a weakness last year into the best number 1 offensive line in the entire football league. I think the other thing, the fun plays, like this team just had fun when they were playing. The Maserati moment, bananas, the turnover chains. I mean, these players they were having fun, like the trick plays. I just like, they were just so fun to watch. The Kendall Lamb fat guy touchdown. I just, It
We
was
stand
just
fat guy touchdowns.
so much fun watching these guys band together, stick together, have each other's backs. You had Dearness Johnson come in and make meaningful plays. Blake Hance, a guy named Blake, stepped in and played a football game with
Yes.
people that he hadn't even met for like 2 days before. Michael Dunn coming in, Adrian Claiborne, Hollywood Higgins stepping. I mean, man, just
Mhm.
props to all of them. Props to the coaching staff for having these guys ready week in and week out amongst a COVID season and in a year that was so unpredictable. Just that it was fun. It was really, really fun. I cannot
It
freaking
was.
wait until
Yeah.
September.
I mean, Stefanski didn't even meet a lot of these guys in person until they started playing football games. And then also, I think one of the things that, and I think everything that we've said falls under this umbrella, but the culture shift. There has been a noticeable culture shift, and there isn't even any media in the locker room to report on it because everything has been done remotely over Zoom. But you can just tell, like, the Browns don't have anything to hide because there's no infighting.
Mm-mm.
There's no, other than maybe David Njoku asking for a trade, there hasn't really been a lot of player drama at all.
Mm-mm.
There hasn't been staff personnel drama. There's been none.
Mm-mm.
Like Kevin Stefanski came in, because I remember someone was talking about when Kyle Shanahan went to the 49ers, and they said that the culture shift happened in less than a day. Like, he walked in there and wasn't going to stand for any bullshit. And I think that's the same way that Kevin Stefanski walked into Berea, and it shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's like, it's not like a dad that they're afraid of. It seems like they just genuinely respect this man and they want to be the best versions of themselves for him.
Mm-hmm.
He just seems like a guy that they just really want to play for. They want to be better for.
I mean, I would do a lot of things for Kevin Stefanski.
This is a PG show.
It is. I mean, I think we all would, right? I'm not alone in this.
We've already talked about the play cock, Meredith. That segment is over.
I mean, go to Browns Twitter, man. I mean, you're more active on the Browns, Steelers, Ravens Twitter than the rest of us are, Bree. But when you took a screenshot of those bros just pining over Kevin Stefanski, my goodness. I felt like I needed to take a shower.
Kevin Stefanski, his fan club may be biggest with the male viewers, actually, according to Reddit. So this was a fun episode, you guys. Thank you, ladies, for making this season fun. Like, we've had so much fun recording this podcast.
We have
so many laughs along the way.
Yes, and we're still going to be here every week.
That's right.
We're not going to stop.
Maybe multiple times a week if there's news to talk about.
Yeah, like, we're not going anywhere. I think some people are like, oh, you're just going to stop recording. No, there's always stuff to talk about.
We did this show in the midst of a pandemic last year when there were no sports.
Yeah.
There were no sports for months, and we still had this show every week, so we're good to go. We will find things to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we started this October of 2019, and I think I think I can count on one hand how many times we've missed an episode over a week. Like, I know we took the bye week off. There were a few times where people were traveling or just had life going on. But, over the course of a year and 3-4 months, we've missed less than 5 shows. Yes. And some weeks there were multiple shows. So we are not going anywhere.
No, we're here.
Yeah. If you guys
deal with it.
Yes. If you guys like doing this live too, we can continue. Just let us know. So you guys can join on the chat. We have fun doing this live, but we also like to just look like slobs and record separately.
I know. Well, it's funny, Bree, before when you're like, okay, I'm setting up, and I was like, oh crap. Yeah, I have to like be sitting somewhere. I can't be like ass up on the couch the way I normally am.
I mean, you could be technically.
Before we started, I had like my hair up and, one of those messy things that I always do. And I was in the kitchen and I took my hair down and my brother was like, what? Why are you getting all dolled up? I have sweats on. And like, all I did was put my hair down. I was like, I'm not dolled up, Jeremy. I just like put my hair down so I look kind of presentable for people. That's the extent of what I did.
Yeah, well, someone was asking me too if we had any thoughts on who the Browns should acquire in free agency, who we should be targeting. Like people want to know what we're thinking, like draft wise. I was like, we need a minute to recover from this game.
Yeah, I mean,
We will have plenty of time to get into all of that in the future shows. So I know the Browns aren't playing anymore. There'll still be plenty to talk about. You know how much we love breaking down mock drafts.
It's our favorite. Well, I mean, and here's the thing, like normally normally about this time is when we would start doing the mock drafts, but we don't have to because we still have a game to talk about from yesterday. So
That's
yeah,
right.
like
That's right.
we need a few moments to process the breakup.
Yeah, there may be plenty of Cavs drama to fill a show as well. Who knows what's
It's already
going on
starting
with them. But
Wah, wah.
yeah, we will end the show for this evening, and we will catch all of you guys hopefully live again next week. Thank you for tuning in and listening to us. Again, you can find us the downloadable version on iTunes or Spotify. And we will chat with you guys all next week. Bye.